Hello there and welcome. Tonight's gentle journey explores one of the most fundamental puzzles of human existence: why we seem trapped in this single fleeting moment we call now. We remember yesterday, we imagine tomorrow, but we can only ever truly inhabit today. It's a curious prison, this present moment, and yet it's the only place we've ever actually lived. But before we explore this temporal cage of consciousness, I'd love to know where in the world you're experiencing this very moment right now. Because that's all any of us can do. Experience right now, in this present that keeps sliding forward like a gentle wave carrying us toward sleep. Perhaps you're nestled in bed somewhere in London as midnight approaches. Or maybe you're watching from Sydney as dawn light creeps through your curtains. Wherever you are, whenever you are, you're here now, and that's really the only place any of us can ever be. Now, I do hope this isn't so intriguing that it keeps you awake, but if it does, at least you'll have pondered one of consciousness's deepest mysteries before you drift into dreams. So settle in. Let your thoughts slow like settling sediment in still water, and let's begin to explore why this moment, right now, is the only moment you'll ever truly inhabit. Think about it for a moment. Every single experience you've ever had has occurred in what felt like the present. Your first day of school, your most recent meal, the breath you're taking right now, all of these happened in what your consciousness labeled as now. You've never actually experienced the past or the future directly. You've experienced memories of the past and anticipations of the future, but those memories and anticipations themselves occurred in present moments of remembering and anticipating. This might seem obvious at first, the kind of thing that makes you shrug and think, well, of course. But the more you sit with this fact, the stranger it becomes. You have access to what feels like a vast library of past experiences and an endless catalog of possible futures, yet you can never actually step into those other times. You can only ever visit them as a tourist in the present moment, looking at postcards of then and travel brochures for later. It's rather like being permanently seated in the middle row of a theater, watching your life unfold on stage. You can see the performance. You're moved by it. You remember previous acts and anticipate upcoming scenes. But you can never join the actors on stage or step back to watch from a different time period. You're always in your seat, always now, always watching from this particular moment in the auditorium of awareness. This constraint shapes everything about human experience in ways we rarely consider. Every decision you've ever made was made in a present moment. Every word you've spoken emerged from a now that immediately became a then. Every plan you formulated, every regret you felt, every hope you've nurtured, all of these mental activities occurred in the present tense of your experiencing them, even when their content was about other times. Scientists and philosophers have long puzzled over this peculiar feature of consciousness. Why should awareness be locked into such a narrow temporal window? After all, if our brains can store information about the past and model scenarios about the future, why can't we actually experience those other times directly? What is it about the architecture of consciousness that keeps us perpetually trapped in the moving moment we call now? Some suggest it's a feature, not a bug. That being locked in the present is what allows for coherent experience and effective action. Others wonder if it's an illusion, that perhaps all times exist simultaneously, and our sense of being trapped in the present is simply how consciousness processes a reality that's actually much more expansive. Still others argue that the present is all there really is, and that past and future are just useful fictions we construct to make sense of change and continuity. But regardless of which philosophical position you take, the experiential fact remains. You are always here, always now. always experiencing this moment that keeps becoming the next moment. Even when you try to remember the past or imagine the future, that remembering and imagining is happening in the present. Your consciousness is like a flashlight that can illuminate memories and possibilities, but the flashlight itself is always held by someone standing in the present moment. As we begin this exploration together, notice that even your attention to these words is happening now. The concepts we'll discuss, the questions we'll ponder, the gentle drift toward sleep. All of these will occur in a series of present moments, each one briefly illuminated by awareness before dissolving into the past to make room for the next now. You are, in the most literal sense, along for the ride through time, but you're always riding in the same seat, the present moment of your own consciousness. Have you ever tried to catch the present moment? It's like trying to grab water with your fingers or hold onto a cloud. The harder you squeeze, the more it seems to slip away. 1 second you're thinking about now, and suddenly that now has become then, replaced by a new now that's already in the process of becoming then again. It's enough to make anyone feel dizzy, this endless chase of the retreating present. And yet here we are, somehow always managing to live in it, like surfers who never fall off a wave that never stops moving. The present moment has this peculiar quality of being both infinitesimally small and absolutely everything. If you try to measure it precisely, it seems to collapse into nothing. A dimensionless point between past and future with no real duration. But if you try to live without it, you discover it's the only thing there is. It's the stage on which all experience plays out, the canvas on which reality paints itself, the single frame of awareness that somehow contains your entire world. This paradox becomes even stranger when you consider what's actually happening in your brain during what you call now. Neuroscientists have discovered that what you experience as the present moment is actually a carefully constructed synthesis of information that arrived at your brain at slightly different times. The light reaching your eyes, the sounds entering your ears, the sensations from your skin, all of these travel at different speeds and take different amounts of time to process. Your brain waits for all these signals to arrive, integrates them into a coherent picture, and presents you with what feels like a unified present moment. But by the time you're conscious of it, that moment has already passed in real time. It's rather like watching a live television broadcast that's actually on a small delay. Your consciousness is always experiencing a very recent past that your brain has packaged and labeled as now. This processing delay means you're never quite living in the true present, but rather in your brain's best guess about what just happened. The now you inhabit is actually a carefully edited highlight reel of the immediate past, assembled by neural processes and delivered to consciousness as a present moment experience. This construction of the present involves multiple brain regions working in concert. The prefrontal cortex helps maintain your sense of continuous identity through time, ensuring that you feel like the same person from moment to moment, even as your experience constantly changes. The parietal lobe integrates sensory information to create your sense of being embodied in space and time. The temporal lobes contribute memory and emotional context that gives meaning to present experience. Meanwhile, regions like the insula process the ongoing stream of internal sensations that create your felt sense of being alive in this moment. But perhaps most interesting is what happens when this system doesn't work perfectly. People with certain types of brain damage can lose their sense of present moment continuity. Some experience temporal fragmentation, where moments don't seem to connect to each other properly. Others lose their sense of being located in time, feeling simultaneously in multiple moments or in no particular moment at all. These conditions reveal just how much work your brain normally does to create the seamless feeling of living in a flowing present. Yet even with a perfectly functioning brain, The present moment remains elusive when you try to examine it too closely. Have you ever noticed how awareness of the present seems to make it disappear? The moment you think, I am experiencing this moment, you've already stepped slightly outside it to observe it. It's like trying to see your own eyes in a mirror. The very act of looking changes what you're trying to observe. The present moment seems to exist most clearly when you're not trying to catch it, when you're simply inhabiting it, without self-conscious reflection. This creates a strange relationship between attention and presence. When you're fully absorbed in an activity, reading a compelling book, having an engaging conversation, or watching a beautiful sunset, you might lose track of time entirely. Hours can pass without you noticing, and you might later describe the experience as being completely present. But during those moments, you weren't thinking about being present. You were simply absorbed in whatever was happening. The experience of presence seems to require a kind of forgetting of presence, a letting go of the effort to be present in favor of simply being absorbed in what's present. Children seem to have a natural access to this kind of unself-conscious presence. Watch a young child playing, and you'll see someone who is completely absorbed in the current activity, without any apparent concern about how long it's lasting or what comes next. They inhabit the present moment, not as a philosophical position or a meditative technique, but as their default mode of being. They haven't yet learned to live partially in the past through regret, or partially in the future through anxiety. For them, there is only now, and now is endlessly fascinating. As we grow older, we gradually develop what psychologists call temporal perspective, the ability to mentally travel backward and forward in time. This is an extraordinary cognitive achievement that allows us to learn from experience and plan for the future. But it also creates a kind of temporal homelessness, where we spend increasing amounts of our present moments thinking about times that aren't present. We become mental time travelers, but paradoxically, all our time travel happens while we're sitting still in the present moment of our own consciousness. The poet T.S. Eliot captured something essential about this when he wrote, "Time present and time past are both perhaps present in time future, and time future contained in time past." He was pointing to the way all temporal experience collapses into the present moment of consciousness, how past and future exist only as present moment mental activities. You can never actually leave now to visit then, but you can bring then into now through the magical processes of memory and imagination. This brings us to one of the most intriguing questions about present moment experience. If we can only live in the present, and if the present is constantly changing, what provides the sense of continuity that makes experience coherent? What makes you feel like the same person from moment to moment, even though each moment brings new sensations, thoughts, and experiences? The answer seems to lie in the brain's remarkable ability to create narrative continuity out of discrete moments, weaving them together into the felt sense of a continuous self, living through a continuous experience of time. Your brain, that 3-pound universe nestled in your skull, constructs your sense of the present moment through an intricate dance of neural activity that would make even the most sophisticated orchestra seem simple by comparison. What you experience as now actually takes a surprisingly long time to assemble, roughly 300 to 500 milliseconds, which might not sound like much until you realize that in neural terms, that's an eternity. Your brain gathers sensory information from multiple sources, processes it through various pathways, cross-references it with memory and expectation, and then presents you with what feels like a unified, coherent experience of the present moment. But by the time you're conscious of it, that moment has already slipped away into the past. Think of your brain as an incredibly sophisticated film editor working in real time. Raw footage comes streaming in from your senses, light patterns hitting your retina, air pressure waves reaching your eardrums, chemical signals binding to receptors in your nose and mouth, mechanical pressure activating touch sensors across your skin. None of this information arrives at the same time or travels at the same speed. Light reaches your eyes almost instantly, but the neural signals take time to travel from retina to visual cortex. Sound travels much more slowly through air, and the processing of auditory information follows different pathways with different delays. Touch sensations from your feet take longer to reach your brain than those from your face, simply because the signals have farther to travel. Your brain somehow manages to synchronize all these different streams of information into what neuroscientists call the specious present, a brief window of time that feels like now but actually represents a carefully integrated package of recent sensory experiences. This integration happens largely below the threshold of consciousness in the vast network of neural processing that operates behind the scenes of your awareness. By the time you experience something as happening now, your brain has already done an enormous amount of work to construct that nowness for you. Different brain regions contribute their own specialized ingredients to this construction of present experience. The visual cortex processes the light patterns into recognizable shapes, colors, and movements. The auditory cortex transforms sound waves into speech, music, and environmental sounds. The somatosensory cortex maps the landscape of touch and internal sensation across your body. But none of these regions work in isolation. They're constantly communicating with each other, sharing information and coordinating their activities through a complex web of neural connections. The prefrontal cortex, that executive region behind your forehead, plays a crucial role in maintaining your sense of temporal continuity. It helps ensure that you feel like the same person from moment to moment, even as your experience constantly changes. It's involved in working memory, holding on to information just long enough for it to be integrated with incoming sensory data. Without this temporal binding function, your experience might fragment into disconnected snapshots rather than flowing smoothly from one moment to the next. Meanwhile, regions like the insula process the ongoing stream of internal sensations that create your felt sense of being alive in this moment: your heartbeat, your breathing, the subtle tensions and relaxations in your muscles, the chemical signatures of emotions as they arise and pass away. This interoceptive awareness provides a kind of bodily anchor for present moment experience, a constant background hum of aliveness that helps ground your consciousness in the here and now. The default mode network, a collection of brain regions that becomes active when your mind wanders, presents an interesting counterpoint to present moment awareness. When you're not actively focused on immediate experience, this network tends to pull your attention toward memories of the past and plans for the future. It's involved in daydreaming, self-reflection, and what researchers call mental time travel. In many ways, the default mode network seems designed to pull you out of the present moment, suggesting that our brains naturally tend toward temporal wandering rather than present moment focus. But perhaps most intriguingly, neuroscientists have discovered that people with certain types of brain damage can lose their normal sense of present moment continuity. Some develop a condition called temporal fragmentation, where moments don't seem to connect to each other properly. They might experience each moment as completely disconnected from the previous one, like watching a movie where every frame is from a different film. Others lose their sense of being located in time altogether, feeling simultaneously in multiple moments or in no particular moment at all. There are also people who, due to damage to specific brain regions, lose the ability to form new memories while retaining memories from before their injury. For these individuals, the present moment becomes a kind of eternal now, constantly renewed but never accumulating into a sense of ongoing experience. They might have the same conversation multiple times in an hour, each time as if meeting you for the first time, trapped in a present that never becomes past because it can't be remembered. These neurological conditions reveal just how much sophisticated neural machinery is normally required to create what feels like the simple experience of living in the present moment. Your sense of nowness isn't just given to you automatically, it's actively constructed by your brain through processes that can be disrupted, altered, or lost entirely. The seamless flow of present moment experience that you take for granted is actually an extraordinary achievement of neural coordination. Recent research in neuroscience has also revealed that different types of meditation and contemplative practices can measurably alter the brain regions involved in present moment awareness. Long-term meditators show changes in the structure and function of areas like the insula and prefrontal cortex, along with altered activity in the default mode network.
These changes seem to correlate with increased ability to sustain attention in the present moment and reduced tendency for the mind to wander into past and future concerns. This suggests that while your brain constructs your experience of the present moment, you're not entirely passive in this process. Through training and practice, you can influence how your brain allocates attention and how it constructs your sense of temporal experience. The present moment isn't just something that happens to you, it's something you participate in creating through the quality and direction of your attention. Yet even with all this neural sophistication, something mysterious remains about present moment experience. Neuroscience can map the brain processes involved in constructing nowness, but it can't fully explain why there's an experiencer of that nowness, why there's something it's like to be the subject of present moment awareness, rather than just a complex information processing system operating in real time. Psychologically, humans have developed perhaps the most peculiar relationship with time of any species we know. We're the only creatures on Earth who seem capable of what researchers call mental time travel, the ability to project ourselves backward into memory and forward into imagination with such vividness that these other times can feel more real and compelling than the present moment we're actually inhabiting. This extraordinary cognitive ability is simultaneously one of our greatest gifts and one of our most persistent sources of psychological suffering. When you remember your childhood bedroom, you're not simply accessing stored information about furniture and wallpaper. Something much more remarkable happens. You almost step back into an earlier version of yourself, experiencing not just the facts of memory, but something approaching the felt sense of being that younger person in that earlier time. The smell of your grandmother's kitchen, the particular quality of light on a long-ago afternoon, the exact mixture of excitement and nervousness you felt on your first day at a new school. These memories can be so vivid that they seem to transport you out of the present moment entirely. Similarly, when you plan next week's vacation or worry about an upcoming presentation, you're engaging in a kind of temporal projection that goes far beyond simple planning. You're pre-experiencing emotions you haven't felt yet, rehearsing conversations that haven't happened, feeling anticipatory excitement or anxiety about events that exist only in imagination. Your body responds to these imagined futures as if they were present realities. Your heart rate increases when you think about the job interview. Your shoulders relax when you picture yourself on the beach. This mental time travel is so convincing that psychologists have found it often feels more vivid and emotionally compelling than present moment experience. People report that memories and future scenarios can seem more real, more important, more deserving of attention than whatever is actually happening right now. A person sitting quietly in a comfortable chair might be genuinely suffering because they're mentally reliving an embarrassing moment from years ago, or anticipating a difficult conversation that might never actually occur. The psychological research on this phenomenon reveals something profound about human consciousness. We don't just live in time, we live in multiple times simultaneously. At any given moment, part of your attention might be in the present, part might be processing something that happened yesterday, and part might be rehearsing something that might happen tomorrow. Your consciousness becomes a kind of temporal mixing board, blending past, present, and future into a complex experiential cocktail. This temporal complexity is largely unique to humans. While other animals can learn from past experience and show some capacity for future planning, they don't seem to engage in the kind of vivid mental time travel that characterizes human consciousness. A dog might remember where it buried a bone and plan to retrieve it later, but it doesn't appear to mentally relive the burial experience or pre-experience the joy of finding the bone again. Animals seem more naturally anchored in present moment awareness, responding to current conditions rather than getting lost in temporal narratives. The development of mental time travel in humans appears to be closely linked to our capacity for language and narrative thinking. Young children, whose language abilities are still developing, show much less tendency toward mental time travel. They're more naturally present, absorbed in current activities without much apparent concern about duration or sequence. A 3-year-old playing with blocks isn't thinking about how long they've been playing or what they'll do next. They're simply building, completely absorbed in the immediate experience of stacking and arranging. But as children's language skills develop and they begin to understand temporal concepts like yesterday, tomorrow, before and after, they gradually acquire the ability to mentally travel through time. This is an extraordinary cognitive achievement that opens up vast new possibilities for learning, planning, and creative thinking. But it also introduces them to forms of psychological suffering that don't exist in the eternal present of early childhood: regret about the past, anxiety about the future, and the particular kind of temporal homesickness that comes from realizing you can never actually return to earlier times. The psychological literature reveals that this mental time travel, while cognitively sophisticated, often works against present moment well-being. Studies consistently show that people are happier when their attention is focused on present experience rather than wandering to other times. The mind that wanders to past regrets or future worries is generally less content than the mind that stays with current experience, even when that current experience is relatively mundane. This creates a fascinating paradox. The same cognitive abilities that allow humans to learn from experience, plan for the future, and create rich inner worlds also tend to pull us away from the direct experience of life as it's actually happening. We become so skilled at mental time travel that we can forget how to simply inhabit the present moment without constantly checking in with other times. The psychological mechanisms underlying this temporal wandering are complex and deeply ingrained. Your brain has evolved elaborate systems for encoding memories and modeling future scenarios because these abilities provided significant survival advantages for your ancestors. Being able to remember where food was found and when predators appeared, being able to plan seasonal migrations and anticipate weather changes, these temporal cognitive abilities made the difference between life and death. But in the modern world, these same mechanisms can become sources of psychological distress. Your brain might treat an upcoming work presentation with the same urgency it once reserved for avoiding predators, flooding your system with stress hormones in response to an imagined future scenario. You might ruminate endlessly about past mistakes with the same intensity your ancestors devoted to remembering the location of fresh water during a drought. The field of psychology has developed various approaches for working with this temporal dimension of mental experience. Cognitive behavioral therapy helps people recognize when their thoughts have become stuck in unproductive loops about past or future, and teaches techniques for redirecting attention to more helpful thinking patterns. Mindfulness-based interventions train people to notice when their attention has wandered away from the present and gently guide it back to immediate experience. But perhaps most interestingly, researchers have found that the quality of mental time travel matters more than its frequency. People who remember the past with acceptance rather than rumination, and who plan for the future with intention rather than anxiety, tend to experience less psychological distress even when they're not particularly focused on the present moment. It's not mental time travel itself that causes suffering, but the emotional quality we bring to our journeys through psychological time. This suggests that the goal isn't to eliminate mental time travel entirely, which would be neither possible nor desirable, but to develop a healthier relationship with our temporal cognitive abilities, learning to visit the past as a source of wisdom rather than regret, and to explore the future as a space of possibility rather than threat, allows us to benefit from our uniquely human capacity for mental time travel without becoming trapped by it. Here's where things get wonderfully strange, and perhaps a little unsettling if you think about it too deeply while trying to fall asleep. While you can remember the past with remarkable vividness and imagine the future with convincing detail, you can never actually experience either of them. When you recall your 10th birthday party, complete with the taste of chocolate cake and the sound of friends singing, you're not actually 10 years old again. You're you right now, having present moment thoughts about being 10. When you worry about next week's presentation or daydream about your next vacation, you're not experiencing next week's anxiety or future relaxation. You're experiencing today's mental activity about scenarios that exist only in imagination. This creates one of the most profound paradoxes of human consciousness. We spend enormous amounts of our present moments thinking about times that aren't present, yet we can never actually escape the present to experience those other times. It's remarkably like being permanently seated in the audience of your own life, able to watch recordings of past performances and previews of future shows, but never able to step back onto those stages or forward into those coming attractions. You remain forever in your seat in the theater of now, watching temporal movies that play out entirely within the present moment of your viewing them. Memory researcher Endel Tulving, who spent decades studying how humans mentally navigate through time, coined the term mental time travel to describe our ability to project ourselves into past and future scenarios. But the more researchers have studied this phenomenon, the clearer it becomes that this travel is entirely metaphorical. You don't actually go anywhere in time. Instead, your present moment brain constructs vivid simulations of other temporal periods using stored information and predictive modeling.
When you remember your childhood bedroom, your brain doesn't retrieve a perfect recording filed away in some neural archive. Instead, it reconstructs that memory from scattered fragments of information, visual details stored in one region, emotional associations in another, contextual information in yet another. These fragments are reassembled in the present moment into something that feels like a coherent memory of a past experience. But this reconstruction process is influenced by your current emotional state, your subsequent experiences, and even what you've learned or believed since that original moment occurred. This means that the past as you experience it is actually a present moment creation. Your childhood, your first love, yesterday's conversation, all of these exist only as current neural activity, shaped as much by who you are now as by who you were then. The past isn't fixed in your experience. It's a living, breathing part of your present consciousness that changes subtly each time you remember it. You might think you're revisiting the same memory, but you're actually creating a new version of it each time, influenced by the particular present moment in which the remembering occurs. Future-oriented thinking works similarly. When you imagine yourself at next year's holiday gathering or worry about an upcoming medical appointment, your brain uses past experiences to construct plausible future scenarios. But these imagined futures are built entirely from present moment neural processes, assembled from memories of similar past situations, current concerns and desires, and your brain's best guesses about how various factors might combine to create future experience. This is why anticipated experiences so often differ dramatically from actual ones. The future you imagine is created by your present moment brain using your current emotional state, your existing knowledge, and your present circumstance. The actual future, when it becomes present, will be experienced by a version of you that might have different knowledge, different emotional states, and different concerns. The vacation you spend months looking forward to might feel different when you're actually there because the you who experiences it isn't quite the same as the you who imagined it. Research in psychology has revealed that this temporal simulation process, while cognitively sophisticated, can become a significant source of psychological distress. People often treat their memories and future projections as if they were current realities, responding emotionally to mental events as if they were actually happening right now. You might find yourself feeling genuinely angry about something that happened years ago, or anxious about an event that might never occur, all while sitting peacefully in a comfortable chair with no immediate threat or problem present. The vividness of these temporal simulations can make them feel more real and important than present moment experience. A person might be surrounded by beauty, comfort, and safety, yet suffer intensely because their attention is absorbed in mentally reliving a past embarrassment or rehearsing a future confrontation. The present moment, no matter how pleasant or neutral, can pale in comparison to the dramatic stories playing out in the theater of temporal imagination. This phenomenon becomes particularly interesting when you consider that happiness research consistently shows people are most content when their attention is focused on present experience rather than wandering to other time. Yet we seem naturally inclined to spend large portions of our waking hours engaged in mental time travel, often to our own detriment. We've evolved brains capable of remarkable temporal simulation, but using these abilities often makes us less happy than simply staying put in the present moment. The illusion of mental time travel is so convincing that many people report feeling as if they can actually visit the past or future. In therapy sessions, individuals sometimes speak as if traumatic memories are happening to them right now, complete with physical symptoms and emotional responses, as intense as if the original event were recurring. Similarly, people might experience anticipatory anxiety so severe that they feel as if the feared future event is already underway, their bodies flooded with stress hormones in response to purely imaginary scenarios. Yet all of this temporal drama plays out within the confines of present moment consciousness. You can spend an entire afternoon lost in regret about yesterday or worry about tomorrow, but that regret and worry are present moment experiences. The sadness you feel about a past loss is happening now. The excitement you experience about future possibilities is occurring now. Even the sense of being transported to another time is a present moment feeling. This recognition can be both liberating and somewhat disorienting.
It means that no matter how vivid your memories or how compelling your future projections, you never actually leave the present moment. But it also means that all the suffering associated with mental time travel, regret, nostalgia, anxiety, anticipation, is optional in a sense, because it's all happening in the only time you actually inhabit. The past can't hurt you directly because it no longer exists. The future can't threaten you directly because it doesn't yet exist. Only the present moment has the power to contain your actual experience, and recognizing this can fundamentally shift your relationship to both memory and anticipation. Why are we built this way? Why would evolution create beings capable of such vivid mental time travel, yet lock us permanently in the present moment? At first glance, being trapped in the now might seem like a limitation, perhaps even a cruel cosmic joke. But when you consider it from an evolutionary perspective, this constraint begins to look less like a prison and more like a remarkably elegant solution to the fundamental challenges of survival and reproduction. Evolution doesn't preserve features without function, and the present moment constraint on consciousness serves several crucial purposes that helped your ancestors not just survive, but thrive in environments that were often unpredictable and dangerous. The present is where action happens. You can't eat yesterday's dinner when you're hungry today, and you can't dodge tomorrow's falling tree branch. Survival requires rapid response to current conditions, and consciousness that was scattered across multiple time periods would be poorly equipped to handle immediate threats and opportunity. Imagine an ancestor who was so absorbed in mentally reliving last week's successful hunt that they failed to notice the approaching predator, or consider someone so focused on planning next season's migration that they missed the ripe fruit available right now. These individuals would have been at a severe disadvantage compared to those who could stay alert to present circumstances while still benefiting from past learning and future planning. Natural selection would have favored minds that, despite their capacity for temporal simulation, remained anchored in the present moment, where actual decisions get made and actions get taken. Your ancestors who were skilled at present moment awareness, those who could notice the subtle rustle in nearby vegetation, feel the shift in wind direction that signals changing weather, or respond quickly to a child's cry of distress, were more likely to survive long enough to pass on their genes. Those who spent too much time mentally wandering in the past or future might have missed the saber-toothed tiger approaching from the left, or failed to notice that the berries they were gathering had attracted a bear with cubs. But evolution also equipped us with the remarkable ability to learn from past experience and plan for future scenarios, creating a fascinating tension at the heart of human consciousness. We need to remember where we found water during the dry season and anticipate where predators might appear at dawn, but we also need to remain alert to what's happening right now. The present moment becomes the integration point where past learning meets future planning through current action. This dual requirement shaped consciousness in a particular way. We can mentally visit other times, but we can only act from the present. Memory allows us to learn from experience without having to repeat every mistake. Future planning allows us to prepare for likely scenarios without waiting for them to occur. But both of these temporal cognitive abilities serve present moment decision-making. The past informs current choices. Future planning guides present actions. Consider how this works in practice. When you're walking through unfamiliar terrain, your present moment awareness keeps you alert to immediate hazards. The loose rock underfoot, the low branch ahead, the sound of something large moving in the nearby brush. But simultaneously, your memory provides context. This type of vegetation usually indicates water nearby. That particular bird call often means predators are absent. These cloud formations typically precede storm. Your planning mind might be considering shelter options or calculating how much daylight remains for travel. All of this temporal information processing serves your present moment navigation through the landscape. The evolutionary advantages of this system become even clearer when you consider social cooperation. Humans evolved as highly social creatures, dependent on group cooperation for survival. Present moment awareness allows for real-time social coordination, reading facial expressions, responding to vocal tones, noticing who needs help or who might pose a threat. But memory and planning abilities allow for much more sophisticated social strategies, remembering who proved trustworthy in past crises, anticipating how different individuals might respond to various proposals, planning cooperative activities that require coordination across time. The present moment constraint ensures that all this social cognitive complexity remains grounded in actual interpersonal reality rather than getting lost in abstract social theorizing. You might spend time thinking about past social interactions or planning future ones, but when you're actually interacting with another person, your consciousness is pulled into the present moment of that encounter. This keeps social relationships rooted in real experience, rather than purely theoretical understanding. Interestingly, the present moment constraint may have also been crucial for the development of human creativity and problem-solving ability. When faced with a novel challenge, your ancestors needed to combine information from past experience with assessment of current conditions and consideration of possible future outcomes. But this integration happens in the present moment of creative thinking. The aha moment of insight, the sudden recognition of a new solution, the creative leap that connects seemingly unrelated ideas, all of these occur in the now, even when they're drawing on temporal information from memory and projection. Modern research in cognitive psychology supports this evolutionary perspective. Studies show that people are most effective at learning and problem-solving when their attention is engaged with present moment information, rather than divided between current tasks and temporal wander. The present moment provides optimal conditions for the kind of focused cognitive processing that leads to insight and skill development. The constraint also serves important functions for emotional regulation and mental health. Emotions evolved as rapid response systems for evaluating and responding to current situations. Fear helps you respond to immediate threats. Joy encourages you to pursue beneficial opportunities. Anger motivates you to defend against present challenge. But when emotions become disconnected from present moment reality, when you're feeling fear about imaginary future threats or anger about past events that can't be changed, they can become maladaptive rather than helpful. Being anchored in the present moment helps keep emotional responses calibrated to actual circumstances rather than temporal simulation. This doesn't mean you can't learn from past emotional experiences or prepare emotionally for future challenges, but it does mean that your emotional works most effectively when it's responding to present moment information about your actual current situation. Perhaps most importantly, the present moment constraint may be essential for what philosophers call agency, your capacity to make meaningful choices and take intentional action. If consciousness were truly scattered across multiple time periods, it's unclear how genuine decision-making could occur. Choices require a unified perspective from which to evaluate options and commit to particular courses of action. The present moment provides this unified perspective, the temporal location where all the information from past and future can be integrated into actual decisions that shape what happens next. Philosophers have wrestled with the nature of present experience for millennia, and their struggles reveal just how slippery and paradoxical this seemingly simple concept actually is. Saint Augustine, writing in the 4th century, captured the mystery perfectly when he confessed, "What then is time? If no one asks me, I know. If I want to explain it to someone who asks, I do not know." He was particularly puzzled by the present moment, noting that it seems to have no real duration. The instant you try to grasp it, to pin it down and examine it, it has already vanished into the past, replaced by a new present that immediately begins its own disappearance. Augustine's insight points to something deeply strange about present moment experience. If the past no longer exists, and the future doesn't yet exist, then only the present can be real. But the present appears to be nothing more than a dimensionless boundary between past and future, a mathematical point with no thickness or substance. How can something with no duration be the only real time? How can a point that exists for no measurable period be the foundation of all temporal experience. This puzzle led Augustine to suggest that time itself might exist primarily in the mind rather than in external reality. The past exists as memory, the future as expectation, and the present as attention or awareness. In this view, temporal experience is fundamentally psychological rather than physical. It's something consciousness creates, rather than something consciousness encounters in the external world. This was a remarkably prescient insight that anticipated many modern discussions about the relationship between time and consciousness. Other philosophers took different approaches to the puzzle of present experience. Some argued that the present is indeed just an arbitrary point moving along the timeline of existence, with no special metaphysical status. In this view, which philosophers call the block universe theory, all moments in time exist equally and simultaneously. Past, present, and future are all equally real. Our sense of moving through time, from past to future, is simply a feature of how consciousness processes a static four-dimensional reality. The present moment isn't special, it's just the particular temporal location where your consciousness happens to be focused at any given time. But this raises its own puzzle. If all moments exist equally, why does consciousness seem to be located at one particular moment rather than spread across all of them? Why do we experience temporal flow rather than in seeing the entire timeline at once? Some philosophers suggest that consciousness itself might be what creates the experience of temporal flow, that awareness somehow moves through an otherwise static temporal landscape, creating the illusion of time's passing. Other philosophical traditions found something profound in our seeming imprisonment within the present moment. The existentialist philosophers, particularly those writing in the wake of two world wars, argued that because we can only ever act in the now, this moment is where our freedom and responsibility are located. You can't change the past directly, and you can't control the future directly, but you can choose what to do right now, and those present moment choices shape everything that follows. Jean-Paul Sartre emphasized that human consciousness is fundamentally different from the consciousness of objects. Precisely because of this temporal structure, a rock exists in the present moment, but it doesn't experience that present. It simply is what it is. Human consciousness, by contrast, is always reaching beyond the present toward future possibilities, while carrying the weight of past experiences. We exist in the present, but we're never simply present in the way a rock is present. We're always becoming, always in the process of creating ourselves through present moment choices that are informed by memory and directed toward imagined future.
This existentialist emphasis on present moment choice and responsibility offers a different perspective on the constraint of living only in the present. Rather than seeing it as a limitation, existentialists viewed it as the foundation of human freedom. Because you can only act now, you're not trapped by your past or predetermined by your future. Each present moment offers a fresh opportunity to choose who you want to become and how you want to live. The phenomenological tradition in philosophy, developed by thinkers like Edmund Husserl and Maurice Merleau-Ponty, took yet another approach to understanding present experience. Rather than asking metaphysical questions about whether the present really exists or how it relates to past and future, phenomenologists focused on describing the structure of present moment consciousness as it's actually experienced. They noted that present awareness always has a temporal thickness, what Husserl called the living present. According to this phenomenological analysis, your experience of the present moment isn't actually instantaneous. It includes what Husserl termed retention, a kind of just past awareness that's still part of your current experience, and pretension, an anticipatory awareness of what's just about to happen. When you listen to a melody, for example, you don't experience each note in isolation. Your present moment awareness includes the notes you just heard and anticipates the notes coming next. Without this temporal thickness, the melody would be meaningless, just a series of disconnected sounds rather than a unified musical experience. This phenomenological insight suggests that the present moment as actually experienced isn't a dimensionless point, but rather a small temporal window that includes traces of the immediate past and anticipations of the immediate future.
Present moment consciousness naturally extends slightly backward and forward in time, creating the temporal context necessary for coherent experience. You don't live in an instant, you live in what might be called an extended present that gives meaning to immediate experience. Eastern philosophical traditions offered their own perspectives on the nature of present moment experience. Buddhist philosophy, with its emphasis on mindfulness and present moment awareness, suggested that most human suffering arises from our tendency to live mentally in times other than the present. The past is gone and can't be changed. The future hasn't arrived and may never unfold as expected. Only in the present moment can you actually respond to life as it is rather than as you remember it being or imagine it might become. But Buddhist analysis also recognized that the present moment, while real, is constantly changing. Everything that exists in the present is impermanent, arising and passing away in an endless stream of becoming. This led to the insight that attachment to any particular present moment experience, pleasant or unpleasant, inevitably leads to suffering, because that experience will inevitably change. The goal isn't to grasp the present moment, but to learn to flow with its constant transformation. Hindu philosophical traditions developed the concept of the eternal present, the idea that beneath the constantly changing stream of temporal experience lies a timeless awareness that is never born and never dies. In this view, your deepest identity exists outside of time altogether, and present moment experience is simply where this timeless awareness encounters the world of change and becoming. The present moment becomes a doorway to recognizing your essential nature as timeless consciousness, rather than a temporally bounded individual. These diverse philosophical approaches to present moment experience don't offer a single, unified answer to the question of why we can only live in the present. Instead, they reveal the profound complexity hidden within what seems like a simple fact of existence. Whether you view the present as the only real time, as an arbitrary point in a static timeline, as the location of human freedom, as a thick temporal window, or as a doorway to timeless awareness, the constraint of living only in the now remains one of the most fundamental and mysterious features of conscious existence. Physics adds another fascinating layer of complexity to our understanding of present moment experience, revealing that the seemingly simple concept of now becomes increasingly strange the deeper we probe into the fundamental nature of reality. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, there is no universal present moment that applies everywhere in the universe simultaneously. What counts as now depends entirely on your reference frame, your location and motion through space. This means that the present moment isn't a cosmic phenomenon shared by all observers, but rather a deeply local and personal experience. To understand this, imagine two people, one standing on a train platform and another aboard a train traveling at high speed. When the person on the platform looks at their watch and declares it to be exactly noon, that declaration of now doesn't correspond to the same moment for the person on the moving train. Due to the effects of time dilation, the clocks of the two observers will not agree about when events occur. What appears simultaneous to one observer, say two lightning strikes hitting opposite ends of the train, will not appear simultaneous to the other observer. This relativity of simultaneity suggests that the present moment you're experiencing right now is not the same present moment experienced by someone moving at a different velocity relative to you. The astronauts aboard the International Space Station, traveling at roughly 28,000 kilometers per hour, inhabit a slightly different now than you do here on Earth's surface. The difference is tiny, measured in microseconds, but it's real and measurable. Your present moment is not their present moment, and neither of you is more correct about when things happen. This insight becomes even more dramatic when we consider observers moving at velocities closer to the speed of light. For someone traveling at 90% of light speed, the present moment stretches and contracts in ways that would seem impossible from our everyday perspective. Events that appear to unfold over hours for such a traveler might correspond to years of elapsed time for stationary observers. The present moment, far from being a universal constant, becomes as flexible and relative as space itself. But relativity reveals something even stranger about the nature of present experience. In Einstein's four-dimensional spacetime, often called the block universe, all moments past, present, and future exist simultaneously. From this perspective, your birth, your present reading of these words, and your eventual death are all equally real, all equally present in the grand structure of space-time. The sense of moving through time from past to future is not a fundamental feature of reality, but rather a subjective experience of consciousness, as it encounters different slices of an eternally existing four-dimensional whole. This block universe perspective suggests that the present moment you're experiencing right now is not more real than any other moment in your life. It's simply the temporal location where consciousness happens to be focused, like a flashlight beam illuminating one particular section of a vast landscape that exists in its entirety, whether illuminated or not. The feeling that the present is special, that it's the only real time, might be an illusion created by the limitations of consciousness, rather than a reflection of how time actually works in the universe. Quantum mechanics introduces yet another layer of strangeness to our understanding of present moment experience. At the quantum level, particles don't have definite properties until they're measured or observed. Before measurement, they exist in what physicists call superposition, a fuzzy state of multiple possibilities rather than definite actuality. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics suggests that consciousness or observation plays a role in collapsing these quantum possibilities into definite realities. If this interpretation is correct, then the present moment might be where consciousness participates in creating reality rather than simply observing it. Your present moment awareness doesn't just experience the world as it is. It might help determine what the world becomes through the act of conscious observation. The present moment becomes not just the time when you encounter reality, but the time when reality crystallizes out of quantum possibility into definite actuality. But not all physicists accept this consciousness-based interpretation of quantum mechanics. Many argue that quantum systems collapse into definite states through purely physical processes that don't require conscious observation. In these interpretations, the present moment is where physical processes unfold according to quantum mechanical laws, but consciousness plays no special role in determining what happens. The present is simply when the universe evolves from one state to the next, according to the mathematical equations that govern quantum. General relativity adds another twist to the physics of present moment experience through its treatment of gravity and space-time curvature. Massive objects like planets and stars don't just attract other objects through gravitational force. They actually warp the fabric of space-time itself. This warping affects the flow of time, causing it to run more slowly in regions of stronger gravitational field. Time passes more slowly at the bottom of a mountain than at its peak, more slowly at sea level than in orbit, more slowly near a black hole than in empty space. This gravitational time dilation means that the present moment is not just relative to motion, but also to gravity. Your present moment passes at a slightly different rate than that of someone at a different altitude or in a different gravitational environment. GPS satellites orbiting Earth must account for both special relativistic effects, due to their high velocity, and general relativistic effects, due to their distance from Earth's gravitational field, to maintain accurate positioning information. Without these relativistic corrections, GPS would be useless within minutes. The most extreme case of gravitational time dilation occurs near black holes, where gravity becomes so intense that space-time curvature approaches infinite. Near the event horizon of a black hole, time would appear to slow down dramatically from the perspective of distant observer. Someone falling into a black hole would experience their own time flowing normally, but to outside observers, they would appear to freeze at the event horizon, their image redshifted and dimmed, but never quite disappearing. The present moment in such extreme gravitational environments becomes stretched and distorted beyond recognition. Perhaps most puzzling of all, some attempts to unify quantum mechanics with general relativity suggests that time itself might not be fundamental to the deepest level of physical reality. In certain approaches to quantum gravity, time emerges from more basic, timeless processes rather than being a fundamental feature of the universe. If these theories are correct, then the present moment might be an emergent property of complex physical systems, rather than a basic ingredient of reality. This possibility suggests that present moment experience might be something that arises only at certain scales of organization, perhaps the scale of biological systems complex enough to support consciousness. Just as temperature doesn't exist for individual atoms, but it emerges when you have many atoms interacting together. The present moment might not exist at the fundamental level of physics, but might emerge when basic physical processes organize themselves into sufficiently complex patterns. These insights from modern physics don't necessarily invalidate the reality of present moment experience, but they do suggest that the present is far more subtle and complex than our everyday intuitions might suggest. The now that feels so solid and immediate to your consciousness is actually a local, relative, possibly emergent phenomenon that depends on your motion through space, your position in gravitational field, and perhaps even the organizational complexity of the physical systems that support your awareness. The present moment remains the only time you can experience, but physics reveals that this constraint operates within a universe where time itself is far stranger and more flexible than it appears from the comfortable perspective of everyday human experience. Your attention plays perhaps the most crucial role in constructing your experience of the present moment, acting like a spotlight that illuminates different aspects of the ongoing stream of consciousness, while leaving others in relative darkness. What you choose to pay attention to literally becomes your present reality, while everything else fades into the background of awareness. This isn't simply a metaphorical description. Neuroscience research shows that attention actively shapes neural processes, determining which sensory information gets processed deeply and which gets filtered out before reaching conscious awareness. Think of attention as the director of your present moment experience. In any given moment, countless streams of information are flowing through your nervous system. Visual patterns from your environment, sounds from near and far, sensations from throughout your body, thoughts arising from memory and planning centers, emotions generated by various brain regions. Without attention to organize and prioritize this information, your consciousness would be overwhelmed by chaotic sensory noise. Attention selects which elements become the focus of present moment awareness, and how they're organized into coherent experience. This selective quality of attention explains why the present moment can feel so different depending on where you direct your focus. When you're completely absorbed in reading an engaging book, the present moment seems to consist primarily of the imaginary world created by the author's work. The sounds of traffic outside, the feeling of the chair you're sitting in, even your own breathing might disappear from conscious awareness. The present moment, for all practical purposes, becomes the fictional reality you're reading about rather than the physical environment where your body happens to be located. Contrast this with a moment when you're trying to fall asleep, but are kept awake by anxiety about tomorrow's challenge. In this case, your attention is focused on imagined future scenarios, and the present moment becomes filled with worry, physical tension, and racing thought. The comfortable bed, the peaceful darkness, the opportunity for rest, all of these present moment realities fade into the background while your attention creates a present filled with anticipated problems that don't actually exist in current reality. The relationship between attention and time perception reveals something profound about the malleable nature of present moment experience. When your attention is fully engaged with current activity, what psychologists call a state of flow, time seems to disappear entirely. Hours can pass without you noticing, and you might later describe the experience as being completely present. Paradoxically, this complete presence often involves a kind of forgetting of time altogether, as if the present moment expands to contain everything rather than feeling like a brief instant between past and future. Conversely, when your attention is divided or when you're bored and constantly checking the clock, the present moment can feel endless and uncomfortable. Waiting in line, sitting through a tedious meeting, or lying awake, unable to sleep. These experiences stretch the present moment into what feels like an eternity. The same 60 seconds that vanish unnoticed during engaging activity can feel interminable when your attention has nothing interesting to focus on and keeps returning to the question of how much time has passed. Research in contemplative neuroscience has revealed that different styles of attention create dramatically different experiences of the present moment. Focused attention practices, where you concentrate on a single object like the breath or a repeated phrase, tend to create a sense of stability and clarity in present moment awareness. The present becomes like a calm lake, with attention resting steadily on its chosen object, while other experiences arise and pass away without disturbing the fundamental stability of awareness. Open monitoring practices, by contrast, involve maintaining a spacious, receptive attention that welcomes whatever arises in present moment experience, without focusing exclusively on any particular element. This style of attention can create a sense of the present moment as vast and accommodating, capable of holding thoughts, emotions, sensations, and perceptions without being overwhelmed by any of them. The present becomes less like a spotlight illuminating one thing, and more like daylight that reveals everything in the landscape of current experience. The training of attention through various contemplative practices demonstrates that you're not simply a passive recipient of present moment experience. While you can't control what arises in consciousness, you do have some influence over how you relate to what arises. You can learn to direct attention more skillfully, to notice when it has become scattered or stuck, and to gently guide it back to chosen objects or maintain it in a state of open receptivity. This capacity for attention training suggests that the quality of present moment experience is not fixed, but can be cultivated and refined. People who engage in regular meditation practice often report that their relationship to the present moment changes significantly over time. They become more capable of resting in present moment awareness, without constantly being pulled into mental time travel. They develop greater sensitivity to the subtle textures of immediate experience that might previously have been overlooked in favor of more dramatic mental narratives about past and future. But attention training also reveals the inherent challenge of present moment awareness. The mind seems naturally inclined to wander away from immediate experience toward memories, plans, fantasies, and abstract thinking. Research suggests that the untrained mind spends roughly 50% of its time engaged in mental activities unrelated to current circumstance. This default tendency toward mental wandering appears to be deeply ingrained in the structure of human consciousness, perhaps reflecting the evolutionary advantages of mental time travel and abstract thinking. The relationship between attention and present moment awareness becomes particularly interesting when you consider that attention itself is always happening in the present. Even when your attention is focused on memories of the past or plans for the future, the act of attending is occurring right now. This means that in some sense you're always present. The question is whether you're present to present moment reality or present to mental constructions about other times and places. This insight points to a subtle but important distinction in contemplative traditions between being present and being present to the present. You can't actually leave the present moment, but you can be present to mental objects that take you psychologically into other times and places. Learning to be present to present moment reality, to what's actually happening in your immediate experience, rather than to mental narratives about what has happened or might happen, represents a particular skill that can be developed through practice. The cultivation of present moment attention also reveals something interesting about the relationship between effort and present. Beginning meditators often approach present moment awareness as something to be achieved through concentrated effort, trying to force attention to stay with current experience. But many discover that this effortful approach actually takes them away from natural presence. The effort to be present can become another mental activity that obscures the simple awareness that's already here. More seasoned practitioners often describe present moment awareness as something that's revealed through relaxation rather than created through effort. Instead of trying to manufacture presence, they learn to recognize and rest in the awareness that's always already present, the consciousness that's aware of all changing experiences, including the effort to be more conscious. This points to a paradox at the heart of present moment experience. The very thing you're seeking to cultivate awareness of what's happening now is what's already here. Noticing you're seeking. Living exclusively in the present moment is simultaneously the greatest constraint and the most profound liberation that consciousness can experience. This paradox lies at the heart of human existence, creating both the deepest sources of suffering and the most complete forms of freedom available to conscious beings. Understanding this dual nature of present moment existence can fundamentally shift how you relate to the temporal boundaries of your own awareness. On one hand, being locked in the present represents a significant limitation that shapes every aspect of human experience in ways that can feel frustrating or even tragic. You can never escape the consequences of your past decisions. That harsh word spoken in anger, that opportunity missed through indecision, that relationship damaged through misunderstanding. All of these past events continue to influence your present circumstances, yet you can never travel back to change them. You're stuck dealing with whatever legacy the past has left you, working with the current reality that previous choices have created. Similarly, you can never reach forward into the future to solve problems before they manifest, or to experience the fulfillment of dreams before putting in the necessary work. That important presentation next week, that relationship conversation you've been avoiding, that creative project you hope to complete someday. All of these future possibilities remain tantalizingly beyond your direct influence. You can plan and prepare, but you can never directly manipulate future outcomes the way you can rearrange the furniture in your current room. This temporal imprisonment means that you must face whatever reality presents to you right now, in this moment, with only the resources and understanding you currently possess. You can't borrow wisdom from your future self or strength from a past version of yourself when you felt more capable. You can only respond to life as it is presenting itself now, from your current level of knowledge and emotional maturity and practical capability. This can feel overwhelming when facing challenges that seem to demand more than you currently have to offer. The weight of being trapped in the present becomes particularly acute during difficult periods of life. When you're experiencing physical pain, emotional distress, or challenging circumstances, the inability to fast forward through the difficulty or return to easier times can make the present moment feel like a prison. You might find yourself desperately wishing you could skip ahead to when the pain has passed, or go back to when things were simpler. But you can't. You can only be here now, experiencing whatever is arising in this moment. Yet within this very constraint lies a profound and often overlooked freedom. Because you can only act in the present moment, you don't need to carry the full weight of your entire personal history or take responsibility for every possible future outcome. You just need to respond to what's actually here now, in this moment, with whatever wisdom and capacity you currently have available. This is both more manageable and more empowering than trying to handle the totality of past regrets and future anxieties. The present moment becomes the one place where you have any real power to create change or influence outcomes. You can't alter what happened yesterday, but you can choose how you respond to its continuing effects today. You can't control what will happen tomorrow, but you can take actions right now that make positive outcomes more likely. The present moment is where possibility meets actuality, where intentions become actions, where the future is actually created rather than merely imagined.
This present moment power extends to your relationship with both memory and anticipation. While you can't change past events, you can change your current relationship to those events. The story you tell yourself about what happened, the meaning you assign to past experiences, the lessons you choose to learn, all of these are present moment activities that can transform how the past influences your current life. Your history remains the same, but its significance can evolve through present moment understanding and forgiveness. Similarly, while you can't control future outcomes directly, you can influence them through present moment choices about where to focus your energy, what values to embody, and how to respond to current circumstances. The future grows out of the present like a plant growing from soil. You can't force the plant to grow faster or guarantee what fruit it will bear, but you can tend the soil, provide water and sunlight, and create conditions that support healthy growth. Many wisdom traditions have recognized this paradoxical nature of present moment existence. They speak of the present as both the smallest possible unit of time and the only moment that contains eternity. In the present moment, they suggest, you can touch something timeless, not because the moment lasts forever, but because it's the only place where the eternal dimension of existence can be directly encountered. Past and future exist only as mental constructs, but the present moment is where consciousness meets reality directly, without the mediation of memory or imagination. This perspective suggests that present moment awareness offers access to a different quality of experience altogether, one that's not bound by the usual temporal concerns about duration, sequence, and change. When you're fully present, you might discover that the anxious question, "How long will this last?" loses its urgency. The present moment isn't measured in minutes or hours, but
but experienced as a qualitative depth that contains everything necessary for complete experience. The liberation inherent in present moment existence also extends to questions of identity and self-understanding. In the present moment, you don't have to be the person you were yesterday or become the person you hope to be tomorrow. You can simply be whoever you are right now, responding to current circumstances with whatever authenticity and wisdom are available to you in this moment. This releases you from the burden of maintaining consistent persona across time or living up to future ideals that may not even be appropriate for current circumstances. This freedom doesn't mean abandoning all continuity or responsibility across time. Rather, it means recognizing that the self who made past decisions and the self who will face future consequences are both abstraction. The only self that actually exists is the one present right now, and this present self can respond to life with fresh perspective rather than being completely determined by historical patterns or future obligations. The present moment also offers freedom from the comparative mind that constantly measures current experience against memories of the past or fantasies about the future. When you're fully present, the question of whether this moment is better or worse than other moments becomes irrelevant. This moment is what it is, and your task is not to evaluate it against some temporal standard, but to respond to it with whatever presence and skillfulness you can bring to bear. Perhaps most profoundly, present moment awareness can reveal that the fundamental quality of consciousness itself is not bound by temporal limitation. While the contents of consciousness, thoughts, emotions, sensations, perceptions arise and pass away in time, the awareness that knows these changing contents seems to have a timeless quality. This awareness doesn't age, doesn't accumulate memories, doesn't anticipate future. It simply knows whatever is arising now, always now, with the same immediate clarity regardless of what it's knowing. Recognizing this timeless dimension of present moment awareness can transform your relationship to the constraint of living only in the present. Instead of feeling trapped in time, you might discover that you're the timeless witness of time, the unchanging consciousness within which all temporal experience unfolds. The present moment stops being a limitation and becomes a doorway into the recognition of what you most fundamentally are. When you remember something, you're not accessing a filed-away recording of the past like retrieving a book from a library shelf or playing back a video stored on a hard drive. This common misconception about memory leads to profound misunderstandings about the nature of temporal experience and your relationship to your own history. Neuroscience reveals that memory is fundamentally reconstructive. Each time you remember, you actively rebuild the memory from scattered neural patterns, influenced by your current emotional state, your subsequent experiences, and even your expectations about what the memory should contain. This reconstructive process means that the past, as you experience it, exists only in present moment neural activity. Your childhood bedroom, your first day of school, your wedding day, yesterday's conversation, all of these supposedly past experiences are actually current creations of your present moment brain. When you remember your 10th birthday party, your brain doesn't transport you back to that earlier time. Instead, it constructs a present moment experience of remembering, assembling fragments of stored information into something that feels like a coherent recollection of a past event. The implications of this are both fascinating and unsettling. It means that every time you remember something, you're slightly changing it. Each act of remembering influences how the memory will be reconstructed the next time, creating a kind of telephone game where your past gradually shifts through the process of being recalled. The memory of your childhood bedroom that you access today is not quite the same as the memory you accessed last year, because it has been subtly influenced by everything that has happened to you in the intervening time. Research in memory formation has revealed the complex neural processes underlying this reconstruction. When you first experience something, your brain doesn't create a single unified recording. Instead, different aspects of the experience are processed and stored in different regions. The visual details might be processed primarily in visual cortex areas, The emotional significance in limbic structures like the amygdala, the contextual information in the hippocampus, and any verbal elements in language processing region. These distributed fragments of information are linked together through patterns of neural connectivity, but they remain separate. When you later remember the experience, your brain must reassemble these scattered fragments into a coherent whole. This reassembly process is guided by your current context, emotions, and expectations. If you're feeling nostalgic, your brain might emphasize the warm, positive aspects of the memory while de-emphasizing any negative elements that were also present. If you're currently feeling anxious, the same memory might be reconstructed with greater emphasis on any threatening or concerning elements that were part of the original experience. This context-dependent nature of memory reconstruction explains why the same event can be remembered differently by different people or even by the same person at different times. Your memory of a childhood family gathering might emphasize the joy and togetherness when you're feeling connected to your family, but emphasize conflict and tension when you're currently having family difficulties. Both versions feel equally real and accurate when you're experiencing them, because they are real as present moment constructions of your remembering brain. The reconstructive nature of memory also explains why memories can become more vivid and detailed over time rather than fading. Each time you remember something, you have the opportunity to add new details, emotional coloring, or interpretive frameworks that weren't part of your original processing of the experience. A memory that seemed relatively insignificant when it first occurred might become increasingly important and detailed as you remember it in new contexts that give it greater meaning. This process becomes particularly complex with memories that you've shared with others through storytelling. When you tell someone about a past experience, you're not just recounting what happened, you're creating a new version of the memory that's influenced by your audience, your current understanding of the event's significance, and your goals in telling the story. The next time you remember that experience, it might be influenced by the version you created while telling it, blending your original memory with the story you constructed about it. Emotional memories demonstrate the reconstructive nature of memory particularly clearly. Research shows that memories associated with strong emotions are not more accurate than neutral memories, but they feel more vivid and certain. This vividness comes not from superior encoding of the original experience, but from the emotional significance your brain assigns to the memory during reconstruction. The feeling of certainty that accompanies vivid emotional memories can be misleading. You might be absolutely convinced that you remember exactly what someone said during an argument, but that conviction reflects the current emotional intensity of the memory rather than the accuracy of its details. Traumatic memories present a special case of memory reconstruction that reveals both the adaptive and problematic aspects of this process. Sometimes traumatic experiences are remembered in fragments, isolated sensory details, emotional states, or physical sensations that don't form coherent narrative. These fragments might intrude into present moment awareness without the contextualizing framework that normal episodic memories provide. In other cases, traumatic memories might be reconstructed in ways that minimize their emotional impact, creating a kind of emotional numbing that protects against overwhelming distress, but also disconnects the person from their own experience. The reconstructive nature of memory has profound implications for how you understand your relationship to your own past. The story of your life that you carry in your memory is not a fixed record of what happened, but a living, evolving narrative that changes as you change. Your past is not behind you in some objective sense, but is continuously being recreated in the present through the act of remembering. This means that healing from past difficulties doesn't require changing what happened, which is impossible, but rather changing how those events are reconstructed in present moment memory. Therapeutic approaches that work with memory often focus on this reconstructive aspect. Rather than trying to help people recover more accurate memories of past events, they might help people develop more adaptive ways of remembering. This could involve changing the emotional context in which memories are reconstructed, adding new information that provides different perspectives on past events, or developing greater awareness of the difference between remembering something and being present to the act of remembering. The recognition that memory is reconstructive also offers a different perspective on forgiveness, both forgiving others and forgiving yourself. Since your memory of past hurts is being reconstructed each time you remember them, forgiveness becomes not a one-time decision but an ongoing choice about how to remember. Each time you recall a past offense, you have the opportunity to reconstruct that memory with greater understanding, compassion, or acceptance. The past doesn't change, but your present moment relationship to the past can transform through conscious participation in the reconstructive process of memory. This understanding of memory as reconstruction, rather than playback, reveals another dimension of why you can only live in the present. Even when your attention is focused on the past through remembering, that remembering is a present moment activity. The past exists not as a place you can visit, but as a current capacity of your present moment consciousness to construct experiences of having been there. Your personal history lives in the present as a creative potential rather than as a fixed record, continuously available for reinterpretation and reconstruction through the mysterious alchemy of present moment awareness, encountering stored fragments of neural information. Similarly, when you think about the future, you're not actually experiencing tomorrow or next year or even the next few minutes ahead. You're experiencing present moment brain activity that constructs models of possible future scenarios using memories, expectations, and predictive algorithms that have evolved to help you navigate an uncertain world. Your brain is remarkably sophisticated at this future modeling process, drawing on vast databases of past experience to create plausible projections of what might happen under various circumstances. But this entire process unfolds entirely within the temporal boundaries of right now. The construction of imagined futures follows patterns similar to memory reconstruction, but with some important differences. While memory works with fragments of actual past experience, future-oriented thinking must work with possibilities, probabilities, and projections. Your brain takes elements from various past experiences, combines them with your current understanding of how things work, and creates scenarios that feel like previews of actual future experience. But these scenarios are assembled from present moment neural activity, using your current emotional state, knowledge, and concerns as building material. This is why anticipated experiences so often differ dramatically from actual ones when the imagined future finally becomes the experienced present. The vacation you spend months looking forward to, the job interview you worry about for weeks, the conversation with a friend that you rehearse mentally, all of these imagined futures are created by your present moment brain, using your current emotional landscape and existing knowledge. But when those futures actually arrive and become present experiences, they'll be encountered by a version of you that might have different knowledge, different emotional states, and different concerns than the you who imagined them. Research in psychology has revealed fascinating patterns in how people construct imagined futures. Most people show an optimism bias when imagining positive future events, creating scenarios that are more vivid, detailed, and likely to occur than statistical reality would suggest. Conversely, people often show catastrophic thinking patterns when imagining negative futures, creating scenarios that are both more extreme and more likely than realistic assessment would support. Both of these biases reflect the present moment emotional and cognitive context in which the future scenarios are being constructed, rather than accurate predictions of what will actually happen. The process of future construction is heavily influenced by your current concerns and priority. If you're currently worried about your health, your imagined futures might feature medical scenarios that wouldn't occur to you during periods when health feels secure. If you're in a romantic relationship that's going well, your projected futures might include scenarios of continued happiness that might seem unrealistic during periods of relationship difficulty. The future you imagine is always a present moment creation, shaped by whatever is most active in your current psychological landscape. This present moment construction of imagined futures serves important functions for planning and decision-making. By creating detailed scenarios of possible outcomes, your brain helps you evaluate different courses of action and prepare for likely challenges. The ability to imagine future consequences of current choices provides crucial guidance for navigation through complex decisions. But this same capacity can become a source of unnecessary suffering when you mistake imagined future scenarios for actual predictions of what will happen. Anxiety often arises from treating imagined negative futures as if they were certain to occur rather than recognizing them as present moment mental construction. When you worry about losing your job, experiencing health problems, or facing relationship difficulties, you're not experiencing future suffering. You're experiencing present moment distress about imagined. The worry you feel is real and happening now, but the events you're worrying about exist only in the realm of possibility rather than actuality. This recognition can be both liberating and challenging. It's liberating because it means that future threats can't actually hurt you until they become present realities, and many of them never will. The vast majority of things people worry about never actually occur, which means that most worry-based suffering is optional and based on mistaking imagination for prediction. But this recognition can also be challenging, because it reveals how much present moment mental energy gets devoted to elaborating scenarios that may have little relationship to what actually unfolds. Different people show characteristic patterns in how they construct an imagined future. Some tend toward optimistic projection, easily imagining positive outcomes and having difficulty anticipating potential problems. Others lean toward pessimistic construction, readily generating detailed catastrophic scenarios while struggling to envision positive possibilities. These tendencies reflect not just personality differences, but different strategies for managing uncertainty and preparing for various contingencies. Cultural and social contexts also influence how people imagine future. Cultures that emphasize individual agency and control might encourage detailed future planning and goal setting, while cultures that emphasize acceptance of uncertainty might discourage excessive future-focused thinking. Social media and contemporary technology can amplify future-oriented thinking by constantly presenting information about upcoming events, future consequences of current trends, and other people's projected plans and goals. The relationship between imagined futures and present moment decision-making reveals another aspect of why consciousness is constrained to the present. While you can imagine various future scenarios, you can only choose actions based on your current understanding and value. The person who will actually experience the future consequences of today's decisions might have different priorities, knowledge, or circumstances than the present moment you who is making those decisions. This temporal gap between decision-making and consequence experiencing is one of the fundamental challenges of human life. Yet this gap also provides opportunities for growth and learning. Each time your projected futures encounter actual future becoming present, you receive feedback about the accuracy of your predictive models. Over time, this feedback can help refine your capacity for future-oriented thinking, making your projections more realistic and useful for decision-making. The process of comparing imagined futures with experienced presents becomes a form of temporal learning that can improve your navigation through uncertainty. The recognition that future-oriented thinking happens entirely in the present moment also offers insight into planning and goal-setting practices. Effective planning might involve not just imagining desired future outcomes, but also staying connected to present moment reality and maintaining flexibility as actual circumstances. Goals become not fixed destinations, but present moment intentions that guide current choices, while remaining open to revision as new information becomes available. Perhaps most importantly, understanding the present moment nature of future-oriented thinking can help differentiate between useful planning and unnecessary suffering. Planning involves imagining future scenarios for the purpose of making current decisions, while worry often involves repetitive elaboration of negative scenarios without any constructive purpose. Both activities happen in the present moment, but they have very different effects on present moment well-being and effectiveness.
The capacity to imagine futures while remaining grounded in present moment reality represents a sophisticated form of temporal intelligence, the ability to benefit from predictive thinking without becoming trapped by it. This might involve holding imagined futures lightly as possibilities rather than certainties, while maintaining primary attention on the current circumstances that are actually within your influence. Like memory reconstruction, future construction reveals another dimension of how old temporal experience
ultimately unfolds within the eternal now of present moment consciousness. William James, the pioneering American psychologist and philosopher, described consciousness as a stream, a continuous flow of experience without clear boundaries between moments, thoughts, or sensations. This stream metaphor captures something essential about present moment experience that static descriptions often miss. Consciousness doesn't consist of discrete snapshots or separate moments lined up like frames in a film strip, but rather flows as an unbroken river of awareness in which each element blends seamlessly into the next. When you pay careful attention to your own experience right now, you might notice this stream-like quality. Your thoughts don't arrive in your consciousness like separate packages delivered to your door. Instead, they emerge gradually from a background of potential, develop through various stages of clarity, and dissolve back into the ongoing flow of awareness. A memory might begin as a vague sense of familiarity, develop into specific visual details, generate emotional responses, trigger related associations, and then fade as new experiences capture your attention. This entire process unfolds as a continuous stream rather than a series of discrete events. The same flowing continuity characterizes sensory experience. The sounds around you don't arrive as isolated audio clips, but as an ongoing soundscape in which new elements emerge while others fade. Your breathing doesn't consist of separate breaths, but forms a continuous rhythm in which inhalation flows into exhalation flows into the next inhalation. Even visual experience, which might seem most like a series of snapshots, actually streams continuously as your eyes make small movements that create a flowing montage of visual information. This streaming quality of consciousness creates an interesting puzzle about the nature of present moment experience. If consciousness flows continuously without clear boundaries between moments, what exactly is the present moment? Where does one moment end and the next begin? The present moment cannot be a discrete unit if consciousness itself is fundamentally continuous and flowing. Instead, the present seems to be more like a moving window of awareness that travels along the stream of consciousness, illuminating different portions of the ongoing flow. James's insight about the stream of consciousness anticipated many discoveries in modern neuroscience about the nature of conscious experience. Research reveals that consciousness emerges from the coordinated activity of multiple brain networks operating at different timescales. Some neural processes operate very quickly, updating moment to moment, while others unfold over longer periods, providing stability and continuity. The interaction between these different temporal scales creates the streaming quality of conscious experience, with rapid changes occurring within a framework of slower, more stable patterns. This multi-layered temporal structure of consciousness helps explain why present moment experience feels both constantly changing and fundamentally continuous. The content of consciousness, specific thoughts, sensations, emotions changes rapidly, but the underlying stream of awareness itself maintains a consistent quality. It's like a river where the water is always flowing and changing, but the riverbank remains stable, providing a consistent form within which the flowing occurs. The streaming nature of consciousness also reveals why attempts to capture or freeze the present moment often feel artificial or forced. You can't step into the same moment twice, just as you can't step into the same river twice. Each moment of the stream is unique and unrepeatable, flowing out of the conditions that preceded it and flowing into whatever followed. Trying to hold on to a particular moment is like trying to cup water in your hands. The very attempt to grasp it changes its nature and causes it to slip away. Yet even this flowing stream exists only in the present. The sense of temporal flow, the experience of thoughts arising and passing away, of sensations emerging and dissolving, of consciousness moving from one content to another, all of this occurs in the now. You don't experience the stream of consciousness from outside of time, but rather as the present moment awareness through which the streaming occurs. The flow happens now, the continuity occurs in the present. The sense of movement from moment to moment is itself a present moment experience. This creates a fascinating recursive structure to present moment awareness. You are the stream, you are in the stream, and you are the awareness that knows the stream, all simultaneous. The present moment isn't something you're in, like a container. It's something you are, the very medium through which all experience streams. When James wrote about the stream of consciousness, he was describing not just the contents of mental life, but the fundamental structure of what it means to be aware at all. The stream metaphor also helps illuminate why present moment experience often feels so different from how we think about time, conceptually. Intellectually, you might think of time as a series of discrete units, seconds, minutes, hours, measured by clocks and calendar. But experientially, time feels more like James's stream, continuous, flowing, without clear boundaries between then and now. The lived experience of present moment awareness often conflicts with mechanical measurements of temporal passage. The streaming quality of consciousness becomes particularly apparent during periods of absorbed attention or meditative awareness. When you're completely engaged in an activity, the normal sense of discrete moments and time passage can disappear entirely, replaced by a sense of flowing presence that seems to have no beginning or end. Hours might pass unnoticed because consciousness becomes like a continuous stream flowing through the landscape of experience, without the usual temporal landmarks that create a sense of measured time. Sleep and dreams reveal other aspects of the stream of consciousness. During sleep, the stream continues but with different qualities, less linear narrative structure, more associative connections, reduced integration between different sensory modalities. Dreams demonstrate that consciousness can stream through scenarios that violate normal temporal and spatial logic, yet they still maintain their own internal continuity. Even in sleep, there's a present moment dreamer experiencing the ongoing flow of dream consciousness. The streaming nature of consciousness also influences memory formation and the construction of personal narrative. Your life story isn't built from discrete moments, but from the flowing stream of experience that gets organized retrospectively into meaningful patterns. The events you remember most clearly are often those moments when the stream of consciousness was particularly vivid, coherent, or emotionally significant. But even these memorable moments were originally part of the continuous flow rather than isolated incidents. Understanding consciousness as a stream rather than a series of snapshots can change how you relate to present moment experience. Instead of trying to capture perfect moments or create ideal states of consciousness, you might learn to appreciate the flowing quality itself, the way thoughts arise and pass away, the way emotions develop and dissolve, the way sensations emerge and fade. The present moment becomes not a thing to be grasped, but a quality of flowing to be experienced. This streaming perspective also offers a different approach to dealing with difficult experience. Instead of seeing painful emotions or challenging thoughts as problems to be solved or states to be escaped, you might recognize them as temporary formations in the ongoing stream of consciousness. Like clouds forming and dissolving in the sky, difficult experiences arise within the stream of awareness, develop through various stages, and naturally pass away as part of the continuous flow of conscious experience. The stream of consciousness remains fundamentally mysterious, despite all attempts to understand it scientifically or philosophically. How does neural activity give rise to the subjective experience of flowing awareness? Why does consciousness feel continuous when the brain processes that support it operate in discrete computational cycles? These questions point to what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness, the mystery of how subjective experience arises from objective physical process. Different cultures have developed remarkably diverse relationships with present moment experience, creating varied frameworks for understanding what it means to be alive in the now, and how this present moment existence should be cultivated, appreciated, or transcended. These cultural differences aren't merely philosophical abstractions, they shape the actual lived experience of present moment awareness for billions of people, influencing everything from daily rhythms and social interactions to spiritual practices and approaches to mental health. Many Eastern traditions, particularly those emerging from Buddhist and Hindu contexts, have developed sophisticated understandings of present moment awareness as a path to wisdom and liberation from suffering. In these traditions, the present moment isn't just where life happens. It's recognized as the only place where awakening can occur. Buddhist meditation practices, for instance, train practitioners to develop increasingly refined awareness of present moment, recognizing that most psychological suffering arises from being mentally absent from current reality, lost in stories about past events that can't be changed, or future scenarios that may never materialize. The Zen tradition takes this present moment emphasis even further, suggesting that enlightenment itself is nothing other than complete presence to what is already here and now. Famous Zen sayings like "when hungry eat, when tired sleep" point to a radical acceptance of present moment reality as inherently perfect and complete, requiring no improvement or alteration. This perspective can seem almost incomprehensibly simple to minds trained in goal-oriented, future-focused thinking, yet it represents one of humanity's most profound insights into the nature of conscious existence. Hindu traditions offer the concept of the eternal present, the recognition that beneath the constantly changing stream of temporal experience lies a timeless awareness that was never born and will never die. In this understanding, your deepest identity transcends the biographical self that moves through time, existing instead as the unchanging consciousness within which all temporal experience unfolds. Present moment awareness becomes a doorway to recognizing this timeless dimension of your own being, rather than merely a psychological technique for reducing stress or improving performance. Indigenous cultures around the world have developed their own unique relationships with present moment experience, often emphasizing the interconnectedness of all life and the importance of being attentive to subtle environmental and social cues that exist only in immediate experience. Many Native American traditions, for example, emphasize the importance of listening deeply to the present moment, to the messages from plants and animals, to the subtle changes in weather and season, to the unspoken communications within human community that can only be perceived through careful present moment attention. These indigenous approaches often integrate present moment awareness with practical survival skills and community harmony. Being present isn't primarily about personal spiritual development, but about maintaining the awareness necessary for successful hunting, gathering, navigation, and social cooperation. This creates a very different flavor of present moment experience, one that's inherently relational and connected to the immediate environment rather than focused on internal subjective state. Western cultures, by contrast, have often emphasized temporal perspectives that pull attention away from present moment experience toward future goals and past achievement. The Protestant work ethic, scientific materialism, and capitalist economics all tend to focus attention on future outcomes, measurable progress, and historical achievements, rather than present moment quality of experience. This future orientation has enabled remarkable technological and social achievements, but often at the cost of present moment awareness and contentment. However, Western cultures have also produced their own forms of present moment wisdom. Romantic poetry celebrated immediate sensory experience and emotional presence. Transcendentalist philosophers like Thoreau wrote eloquently about the profound satisfaction available in simple present moment awareness of natural beauty. More recently, psychological research has validated many traditional insights about the benefits of present moment awareness, leading to the development of mindfulness-based interventions that bring contemplative wisdom into clinical and educational settings. Contemporary consumer culture creates particularly complex challenges for present moment awareness. Modern technology, especially smartphones and social media, seems designed to fragment attention and pull consciousness away from immediate experience toward virtual realities that exist in a kind of temporal limbo, neither clearly present nor clearly past or future. The constant availability of information, entertainment, and social connection can make simple present moment awareness seem boring or insufficient by comparison. Yet this same technology also offers unprecedented tools for cultivating present moment awareness. Meditation apps can guide people through contemplative practices. Biofeedback devices can help develop awareness of physiological states, and online communities can provide support for those interested in exploring present moment experience. The challenge lies in using these tools skillfully rather than allowing them to become additional sources of distraction. Different languages encode different relationships to present moment experience through their grammatical structures and vocabulary. Some languages have multiple present tense forms that distinguish between different qualities of immediate experience, ongoing actions, completed actions with present relevance, habitual actions, and states of being. Other languages treat temporal relationships more fluidly, with less sharp distinctions between past, present, and future. These linguistic differences may subtly influence how speakers experience their relationship to the present moment. Research in linguistic relativity suggests that language doesn't completely determine thought, but can influence habitual patterns of attention and conceptualization. Someone whose native language makes fine distinctions between different types of present moment experience might naturally develop more nuanced awareness of temporal qualities than someone whose language treats all present moment experience as linguistically equivalent. Economic and social conditions also influence cultural relationships with present moment experience. Cultures facing immediate survival challenges may naturally emphasize present moment awareness out of necessity. Paying attention to current conditions becomes essential for meeting basic needs. Cultures with greater material security may have the luxury of focusing attention on past and future concerns, but may also lose touch with the immediacy and vividness that comes from present moment urgency. Educational systems reflect and reinforce cultural attitudes toward present moment experience. Western education tends to emphasize future-oriented thinking, studying today to prepare for tests tomorrow, learning skills for future careers, accumulating knowledge for later application. While this approach has obvious benefits, it can also train young people to live primarily in anticipation of future rewards, rather than finding meaning and satisfaction in present moment learning and growth. Some educational approaches are beginning to integrate present moment awareness more explicitly. Contemplative education programs introduce meditation and mindfulness practices into academic settings, recognizing that the quality of attention students bring to their learning significantly influences both comprehension and personal development. These programs suggest that present moment awareness isn't opposed to learning and achievement, but rather creates the optimal conditions for both intellectual growth and psychological well-being. Religious and spiritual traditions across cultures have developed various practices for cultivating present moment awareness, from Christian contemplative prayer and Jewish meditation to Islamic dhikr and Sufi whirling. Despite their different theological frameworks, these practices often converge on the recognition that present moment awareness opens pathways to transcendent experience that aren't available through conceptual thinking or future-oriented striving. The globalization of culture creates interesting opportunities and challenges for present moment awareness. People now have access to wisdom traditions from around the world, allowing them to experiment with different approaches to present moment experience and find practices that resonate with their particular temperament and circumstances. But this cultural mixing can also lead to superficial appropriation that misses the deeper contextual understanding that makes these practices effective within their original cultural setting. Here's a curious paradox that reveals something profound about the nature of present moment awareness. The more you try to be present, the more elusive the present can become. This isn't a failure of technique or concentration. It's a fundamental feature of how consciousness relates to itself. The effort to capture, hold onto, or manufacture present moment awareness can actually pull you out of the natural presence that's always already here, creating a kind of spiritual chase, where the very act of pursuing presence becomes an obstacle to experience. This paradox becomes apparent to anyone who has tried meditation or mindfulness practices. You sit down with the sincere intention to be fully present, to experience this moment without the usual mental commentary about past and future. But the moment you begin trying to be present, a subtle form of self-consciousness arises. Part of your attention becomes focused on monitoring your success at being present, evaluating whether you're doing it correctly, comparing your current experience to some ideal of what present should feel like. This monitoring and evaluating mind is itself a form of mental time travel, projecting into an imagined future where you'll be more present, or comparing current experience to past moments when presence felt more accessible.
The very effort to grasp the present moment can transform it from lived experience into a mental object to be achieved or maintained. Instead of simply being aware, you become aware of being aware, which creates a subtle but significant shift in the quality of experience. It's like trying to see your own eyes directly. The very attempt to look changes what you're trying to observe. The present moment, when approached as something to be captured or controlled, tends to slip away precisely because the grasping mind operates in time, always reaching toward a future state or measuring against past experience. This doesn't mean that all effort to cultivate present moment awareness is counterproductive, but it does suggest that the nature of effective effort is more subtle than it might initially appear. Many contemplative traditions recognize this paradox and develop approaches that work with it rather than against it. Instead of trying to force presence, these approaches often emphasize allowing, receiving, or simply noticing what's already here. The shift is from trying to create an experience of presence to recognizing the awareness that's already present, even when attention is scattered or reactive. The paradox deepens when you consider that the very desire to be more present can become another form of future-oriented thinking. You might find yourself meditating today in order to be more peaceful tomorrow, practicing mindfulness now so that you'll be less anxious later, trying to be present in this moment so that future moments will feel more satisfying. The present moment becomes instrumentalized, valued not for its own sake, but as a means to some future psychological state. This instrumental approach can miss the essence of presence, which is not about achieving particular states, but about recognizing the awareness within which all states arise and pass away. Another layer of the paradox emerges when you realize that the self that's trying to be present is itself a construction that exists primarily in psychological time. The sense of being a separate individual who sometimes is present and sometimes isn't, who needs to work on cultivating presence, who has a history of being distracted and goals of becoming more aware. All of this is a story that unfolds in mental time. But present moment awareness, in its most fundamental sense, might not be something that belongs to this psychological self at all. Some contemplative traditions point to awareness itself as being naturally and effortlessly present, not requiring any cultivation or maintenance by a psychological self. In this view, awareness is like space, always already here, accommodating all experiences without being changed or improved by any of them. The effort to become present might be based on a misunderstanding, like trying to make space more spacious or attempting to make awareness more aware. The space doesn't need to work on being spatial, and awareness doesn't need to work on being aware. These are simply what they are by nature. This perspective suggests that present moment awareness isn't actually an achievement or a state to be maintained, but rather the constant background condition within which all experience unfolds. You can't not be present in this fundamental sense, because consciousness always occurs now, even when its content involves memories or plans or fantasy. The question isn't how to become present, but how to recognize the presence you never actually left, even when attention was focused on past regrets or future concerns. Yet this recognition itself can become another subtle form of grasping. The mind that understands intellectually that presence is always already here might try to access this understanding as a way of being more present. But understanding the concept of natural presence isn't the same as recognizing it directly, and the effort to apply this understanding can create the same self-conscious monitoring that characterizes other forms of trying to be present. You might find yourself trying to not try, efforting to be effortless, which creates its own forms of tension and self-division. The resolution of this paradox, to the extent that there is one, seems to involve a kind of relaxation or letting go rather than increased effort or control. Instead of trying to be present, you might simply notice what's already here. Instead of working to maintain awareness,
you might recognize that awareness is maintaining itself. Instead of trying to stop the mind from wandering into past and future, you might simply notice when wandering has occurred and gently return attention to immediate experience, without making this returning into a project or achievement. This relaxation doesn't mean becoming passive or disengaged. Rather, it involves a shift from effortful doing to receptive being, from trying to create presence to allowing presence to reveal itself. It's more like settling into a comfortable chair than climbing a mountain, a softening into what's already available rather than a reaching towards something distant or different. The paradox of trying to be present also reveals something about the nature of spiritual or contemplative practice more generally. Many practices that appear to be about achieving particular states or experiences might actually be about undoing the obstacles to recognizing what's already naturally present. The effort involved isn't about building something new, but about releasing what's unnecessary, like a sculptor removing excess stone to reveal the figure that was always there. This understanding can bring a quality of kindness and patience to contemplative practice. Instead of judging your wandering mind or frustrated attempts to be present as failures, you might recognize them as natural movements of consciousness exploring its own nature. The very recognition that you've been trying too hard to be present is itself a moment of presence, a gentle awakening to what's actually happening right now. The paradox resolves not through solving it but through relaxing into the awareness that notices the paradox, that observes the trying and the frustration and the letting go with the same gentle attention that notices everything else arising and passing away in the eternal space of present moment awareness. Modern technology has created an unprecedented situation in human history. For the first time, we live surrounded by devices specifically designed to capture, fragment, and redirect our attention away from present moment experience. These technologies don't just provide information or entertainment, they actively compete for the most fundamental resource of consciousness itself, the quality and direction of your attention. Understanding how this technological environment affects your relationship to the present moment has become essential for anyone interested in cultivating awareness in contemporary life. The smartphone represents perhaps the most sophisticated attention-capturing device ever created. It's designed to be irresistibly compelling through variable ratio reinforcement schedules that mirror the psychological mechanism underlying gambling addiction. Each time you check your phone, you might find something interesting, important, or emotionally engaging, but you never know exactly what you'll discover or when the next compelling notification will arrive. This uncertainty keeps your attention in a state of constant anticipation, always slightly turned toward the possibility of digital stimulation, rather than resting in immediate physical experience. Social media platforms amplify this attention fragmentation by creating what researchers call continuous partial attention, a state where your consciousness is simultaneously engaged with multiple streams of information without fully committing to any of them. You might be physically present in a conversation with a friend, while part of your attention is monitoring your phone for messages. Another part is thinking about a social media post you saw earlier, and yet another part is composing a mental response to something you plan to share later. The present moment becomes fragmented across multiple temporal and spatial contexts simultaneously. This technological fragmentation of attention creates a qualitatively different relationship to present moment experience than anything previous generations encountered. While humans have always been capable of mental time travel and distraction, these tendencies were naturally limited by the information available in immediate environment. You could daydream or worry, but you couldn't simultaneously monitor dozens of ongoing conversations, news events, entertainment options, and social interactions the way contemporary technology makes possible. The constant availability of digital stimulation can make simple present moment awareness seem boring or insufficient by comparison. Why sit quietly with your breath when you could be reading interesting articles, watching entertaining videos, or connecting with friends across the globe? The present moment, in its unadorned simplicity, can pale in comparison to the constant novelty and stimulation available through digital devices. This creates a kind of attentional inflation, where increasingly intense forms of stimulation are required to feel engaged or satisfied. Research in neuroscience reveals that this technological environment is literally reshaping the brain in ways that affect attention and present moment awareness. The neural pathways associated with sustained attention and deep focus appear to weaken with frequent task switching and digital multitasking. Meanwhile, the brain regions involved in seeking novelty and responding to unpredictable rewards become increasingly active and dominant. Over time, this can make it more difficult to sustain attention on present moment experience for extended periods. Yet technology also offers unprecedented tools for cultivating present moment awareness. Meditation apps can guide people through contemplative practices with a level of sophistication and accessibility that was previously available only to those with access to experienced teachers. Biofeedback devices can help people develop awareness of physiological states like heart rate variability, breathing patterns, and muscle tension that might otherwise remain below the threshold of conscious awareness. Online communities can provide support and guidance for people interested in exploring present moment awareness practice. The key seems to lie in developing a more conscious and intentional relationship with technology rather than completely rejecting it or unconsciously submitting to its attention-capturing mechanism. This might involve creating specific times and spaces for digital engagement, while protecting other periods for present moment awareness. Some people find it helpful to establish technology-free zones in their homes or technology-free periods in their daily schedules, creating islands of present moment experience within the sea of digital connectivity. The practice of digital minimalism, consciously reducing the number of apps, notifications, and digital services you engage with, can help restore a more natural relationship between attention and immediate experience. Instead of trying to keep up with dozens of information streams simultaneously, you might choose to engage with just a few that truly add value to your life, while letting go of those that primarily serve to fragment attention without providing meaningful benefit. Mindful technology use involves bringing present moment awareness to your interactions with digital devices themselves. This might mean noticing the physical sensations of holding your phone, being aware of your emotional state when checking social media, or observing the impulse to reach for digital distraction when facing boredom or discomfort in immediate experience. Rather than using technology unconsciously as an escape from present moment reality, you can learn to engage with it as another form of present moment experience. The challenge of maintaining present moment awareness in a technological environment also reveals something important about the nature of attention itself. Attention isn't just a personal resource that you possess individually. It exists within a cultural and technological context that either supports or undermines contemplative awareness. The contemplative traditions develop their practices in environments very different from contemporary digital culture, and adapting these ancient wisdom practices to modern technological realities requires creativity and experimentation. Some contemporary teachers suggest that working skillfully with technology might actually accelerate contemplative development by providing more frequent opportunities to notice when attention has become scattered and to practice returning awareness to present moment experience. Each time you notice that you've been unconsciously scrolling through social media or compulsively checking messages, you have an opportunity to pause, breathe, and reconnect with immediate physical and emotional reality. The development of artificial intelligence and virtual reality technologies promises to create even more sophisticated challenges for present moment awareness. As these technologies become more immersive and compelling, the distinction between mediated and immediate experience may become increasingly difficult to maintain. Learning to navigate these technological environments while preserving access to direct, unmediated present moment awareness may become one of the essential skills for psychological and spiritual health in the coming decade. The relationship between technology and present moment awareness also raises important questions about what it means to live authentically in contemporary culture. Is it possible to be fully present while remaining connected to global information networks and social media platforms? How do we balance the genuine benefits of technological connectivity with the contemplative benefits of sustained present moment awareness? These questions don't have simple answers, but exploring them consciously can help you develop a more intentional and skillful relationship with both technology and presence. perhaps most important, working with technology mindfully can help you discover that present moment awareness isn't something that exists only in special circumstances, quiet meditation halls, natural environments, or technology-free retreats, but is available even within the most complex and stimulating technological environments. The awareness that knows digital distraction is the same awareness that knows breath, birdsong, or the feeling of your feet on the ground. Learning to recognize this awareness, regardless of its content or context, might be one of the most practical and relevant forms of contemplative practice for contemporary life. And so we arrive at the end of our gentle exploration, though of course you arrive at this ending only through the present moment you're inhabiting right now. We've wandered through neuroscience and philosophy, psychology and physics, ancient wisdom and modern technology, always returning to the same fundamental truth. You can only ever live in the present because there's nowhere else consciousness can actually exist. This isn't a philosophical position or a spiritual teaching. It's simply the basic structure of what it means to be aware at all. Throughout this journey, we've discovered that the present moment is far more complex and mysterious than it initially appeared. What feels like a simple, immediate experience of now actually involves sophisticated neural processing that takes hundreds of milliseconds to construct. Your brain continuously assembles fragments of sensory information into the coherent experience of present moment awareness, while simultaneously maintaining the sense of temporal continuity that makes life feel like a flowing stream rather than disconnected snapshot. We've seen how memory and imagination, those remarkable human capacities for mental time travel, paradoxically demonstrate our imprisonment in the present rather than our escape from it. Every memory you recall is reconstructed in present moment neural activity, influenced by your current emotional state and circumstances. Every future scenario you imagine is assembled from present moment brain processes, using current knowledge and concerns as building material. The past exists only as present moment remembering. The future exists only as present moment anticipating. All roads of consciousness lead back to now. The evolutionary perspective revealed that this temporal constraint isn't a cosmic accident or cruel limitation, but an elegant solution to the challenges of survival and reproduction. Being anchored in the present moment ensures that consciousness remains connected to the immediate conditions where actual decisions must be made and actions must be taken. Mental time travel serves this present moment decision-making, providing information and context that enhance current responses to current circumstances. Philosophy showed us the deep puzzles hidden within present moment. Is the present a dimensionless point between past and future, or does it have temporal thickness? Is it the only real time, or just an arbitrary location in a static four-dimensional universe? Different philosophical traditions have approached these questions in radically different ways, yet they all point to something profound and mysterious about the nature of temporal existence that goes far beyond simple common sense understanding. Physics added layers of complexity that challenge our intuitive understanding of what it means to live in the present. The relativity of simultaneity reveals that your now is not the same as someone else's now if you're moving at different speeds. Gravitational time dilation shows that the rate at which your present moment passes depends on your location in space-time. Quantum mechanics suggests that present moment observation might participate in determining which possibilities become actual reality. The present moment, far from being simple and obvious, emerges as one of the most subtle and mysterious aspects of physical reality. The neuroscience of attention revealed that present moment awareness isn't simply given, but must be actively constructed through the skillful direction of attention. What you attend to literally becomes your present reality, while everything else fades into the background. This gives you some agency in shaping the quality of present moment experience, even though you can't control what arises in consciousness. Learning to work skillfully with attention becomes a practical approach to enhancing present moment awareness without falling into the paradox of trying too hard to be present. Our exploration of memory reconstruction and future construction showed how psychological time operates entirely within present moment consciousness. The past isn't fixed in your experience, but is continuously recreated through present moment remembering. The future isn't predetermined, but is actively imagined using present moment neural process. This understanding can be both liberating and disorienting. It means your relationship to both past and future can evolve through present moment awareness, but it also reveals how much psychological suffering comes from mistaking mental time travel for actual temporal experience. Cultural perspectives highlighted how different societies have developed varied relationships with present moment experience, from Eastern traditions that emphasize presence as a path to liberation, to Western cultures that often focus on future achievement and progress. These cultural differences aren't just intellectual curiosities. They shape the actual lived experience of being present for billions of people. Understanding these variations can help you develop a more conscious and intentional relationship with your own cultural conditioning around time and presence. The paradox of trying to be present revealed something crucial about the nature of contemplative practice and spiritual development. The very effort to capture or maintain present moment awareness can become an obstacle to natural presence. This doesn't invalidate contemplative practice, but points to the importance of approach, working with a quality of allowing and recognition rather than grasping an achievement. Technology emerged as both a significant challenge and a potential tool for present moment awareness in contemporary life. Digital devices are specifically designed to fragment attention and pull consciousness away from immediate experience, creating unprecedented challenges for sustained present moment awareness. Yet these same technologies can also support contemplative practice when used skillfully and intentionally. Perhaps most importantly, our exploration revealed that present moment awareness isn't a special state to be achieved or maintained, but the natural condition of consciousness. You can't actually leave the present moment even when your attention is focused on memories or plans. The awareness that knows past focused thoughts is present. The consciousness that imagines future scenarios exists. Recognizing this can shift your entire relationship to both contemplative practice and everyday experience. Where are you as these words reach your awareness? You're here, in this moment, wherever and whenever here and now happen to be for you. You've been here throughout this entire exploration, even when we discussed the most abstract philosophical concepts or complex scientific theory. This presence wasn't something you created through effort or achieved through practice. It was the constant background condition that made all learning, thinking, and understanding possible. This recognition doesn't solve all the mysteries of consciousness or time, but it does offer a foundation for living with greater acceptance and appreciation of the temporal structure of existence. You don't need to escape the present moment because it's not a prison. You don't need to achieve perfect presence because some degree of presence is always already here. You simply need to recognize and appreciate the remarkable fact that consciousness exists at all, that awareness is somehow possible, that experience happens at the intersection of timeless awareness and temporal change. If this gentle journey into the mystery of present moment existence brought you any insight, peace, or simply a few moments of contemplative rest, I'd be grateful for your engagement with these ideas. Whether through likes, subscriptions, or simply carrying these reflections into your daily experience, you help these explorations reach others who might benefit from pausing to consider the profound mystery of being here now, always now. Sleep well, fellow traveler in the eternal present. May your dreams unfold with the same mysterious grace that allows any experience to arise in the timeless space of present moment awareness.